There were a couple hands over here.
We're right here.
Oh, Gary.
Well, mine is just that I want to hear input that is productive input and not complaints about this. I don't want this to be a shouting match. I want productive input going on the board. So that's why I said, yes, productive input. I don't want a bunch of complaints and then this meeting just be wasted to me. So that's why I'm asking for that.
Sometimes getting a group informed of the so-called authority figures as to what we feel like is very productive.
Well,
We're not going to stand for it. You need to hear it. You're not authority figures. You're our employees.
absolutely, we are employed by the taxpayers of this county. I concur completely.
Tell them what we think of.
And we have been out here.
I don't even like to be here wasting my time going to these meetings. You might live for it, but I got other things I'd rather be doing. I came down here, I'd like to tell you to be ethical. That means don't steal things.
Okay.
Our property rights.
Sir, and you don't know me, I don't know you. I can guarantee you ethics is what I live for. All right?
I find that hard to believe.
Well, sir, all I will say is, if you knew me, you would know that.
Be nice.
But you don't. I'm not saying that.
Be nice. Be civil.
Yes, please.
Okay, so,
Well, my
Steal my
focus
land.
input, a couple of things just to be consistent, and you probably need to be consistent and not, and use an alternative word to buffer in option D.
Right.
And actually, in some ways, I don't think the setbacks are, the standard setbacks are quite large enough. But, and I just want to say that I own 60 acres in the Marys River watershed. It includes at least 6 springs. It includes a fish-bearing stream. And I've come to realize that in order for the system to work as a whole, I need to have, and I do have appropriate setbacks, I hope, to protect these water-bearing, these resources of water. And I think about the bigger picture, like the fishermen in the ocean who don't have fish to catch anymore, their kids can't pursue the same career. So I kind of coming from that perspective as a personal perspective, as well as just some citizen making a decision for someone else. I have this area, it's forestry land, and I want to do the best I can. And I also want my neighbor to do the best that they can. And part of this, I think, is helping each other learn what is the best we can do as we evolve and understand systems better. So I guess the other thing that concerns me, I forget now where it is, but there's a 25% slope, and you're allowed to do development on that, and maybe there's enough protection, you know, of checking it out before anything is actually done to the vegetation, but that one worried me a little bit. I think this is more of a just question about the options, right? It's not the thing as a whole, it's just the options.
So the point was that if this allows development on 25% slopes, that may be too steep. Is that what you're...
Right, or it was vegetation removal on the 25% slope. It's just, I don't know enough to know if the analysis would protect downstream people from sediment input or not. Maybe there's enough protection. I just need to talk with you about that.
Okay.
But thank you for doing this. I know that you're in the middle of regulations and everything, and I appreciate the county working on this.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to organize this a little bit by the options, because that's what we said we were going to do. So, option A.
I would like to see clear definitions on how to handle addressing wildfires relative to riparian conflicts and
Good comment. Thank you. So, briefly, what he was mentioning is there may be conflicts between protecting the riparian area and protecting against wildfire. We do address that somewhat in here, but I hear your point, and we'll look at clarifying that or making it stronger. Right. Thank you. Okay. Other comments on option A, which is a clear and objective standards that spell out the types of incursions you can make into the riparian area for what purposes. It's very specific and things like.
You know, you have the questions. Note that any answer that anyone gives on option A, B, C, D, E, or any other, it will go just along with what you want and what your group wants.
Okay,
Those
sir, this is not this is not appropriate, all right? This is not part of this
Yes, it is
program.
appropriate.
No,
Yeah,
sir.
Well, in this lady,
My question about clear and objective standards, you picked 1850 out of the clear, why don't we use 1906? That was when my grandmother was born or something. Well, why don't we use 1300? We can dig up the soil and see what it was in 1300.
We chose 1850 because that was pre European settlement, where we had a large scale influence of the landscape in terms of man's activity. And what we were using it as a baseline for what we know was fish, what's supported fish in large numbers.
But I would be willing to bet you a large sum of money that 500 years previous to that is very different as well, even though there were no Europeans here in the previous 500 years.
But we don't have records to go back.
Dig it, we can do soil.
But we didn't just use 1850 vegetation records. We used other factors, topography, soils, hydrology, and that type of information.
But that is not, it's not a clear or objective choice. It's just something that happened, you picked out of the...
Right, and that 1850 vegetation is not part of the clear and objective standard.
My second point
Could
is...
people with both questions and answers use the mic? We have heard nothing that has been
Okay.
said over there.
Sorry for that.
Not one
So
question
I
over
will,
there.
I will summarize, gentlemen.
But we would like to hear their question.
Okay, and we'll do that. The gentleman was saying why use 1850 as the magic date for looking at historic vegetation. And the response was, well, that's the kind of the turning point between pre-European settlement when significant changes to the landscape started happening from the way it had been for thousands of years. And my response was also that that whole element is not really part of our clear and objective standards. So it comes in a different place. And
If I have one more point, and that is that why you exempted government-owned property from these rules. The city of Corvallis should be, the ground that's owned by the city of Corvallis along the land, it should be the first place you start implementing this, if it's a good plan.
Okay, and that point, you can hear, should not exempt government properties. City of Corvallis land along the riverfront should be the first place that is applied. We're not
Write that
exempt.
down. Write her down.
Well, you know it's coming. Go ahead. Okay. So, and to answer that or respond, that we're not exempting government property. This doesn't apply inside the city limits of Corvallis, meaning for private or public property, because we don't have jurisdiction there. But we'll address that.
please,
So OSU can still spray the fertilizer out along between 35th and Harrison? I'm above them, so everything I do...
There's two reasons why maybe so. One is if that's a farm practice, we don't have authority to regulate farm practices. And secondly, if it's inside city limits, we don't have to. So, okay. I'm going to move on. I'm sorry that this is...
I have a question,
Okay,
and
go.
I want
All right.
to you changed your criteria of where this starts from something that is defined. You changed your criterion for where this starts from the high water, ordinary high water mark, which is a defined mark. But you come to something called the top of the bank. There is no bank in much of my area. In other words, you want the whole place. See, and so it's not defined. There's no map that shows it. It's not practical. The only thing that's practical is something that is defined by law.
Okay, so I hear that point. We actually took that back and forth with property owners and our advisory group, and everybody ran in on top of the bank. This is ordinary high water mark. And there's pros and cons to both of them. And we're trying to find the one that is most workable on the land for property. So I hear your point, and we will take that into consideration.
But it's not defined mark.
Top of bank, in some instances, is much easier to define on the land than the ordinary high water mark. In some cases not. I hear your point
But
on
if you come
flatlands.
out
Right.
on side of the Willamette River,
Right,
there is no bank.
right. Yeah,
Many,
I hear
many
you.
areas.
Good point. Okay.
Rick.
Yes,
Okay.
Ed, sorry.
I would like to have our DEQ man come up and state to us what is the minimum setbacks that his solicitors will accept in this process on all these streams. Through the Goal 5 process, what is the minimum that the state expects from you to give to them through this process? And they've already done, what, a dozen counties? So they already know what they've accepted as reasonable setbacks. So I'd like to know what they think is
Okay,
the very minimum we need to set aside for them.
And Chris, if you wanted to answer that, I want to clarify that a little bit though, Ed. One of the reasons we are developing this program is to address DEQ's expectations mandate to us. Another reason is statewide planning goal 5, which is unrelated to DEQ's requirements of us. So there's two sets of requirements that we're attempting to meet through this
Goal
process.
5 man here tonight?
There's no representative from the Department of Land Conservation and Development who implements the statewide planning goals in the audience that I have seen. So.
Why not?
Can you all hear me? Okay. We, as an agency, are responsible for implementing the Clean Water Act. And so that's the act that we're implementing, that we're using to, what we're asking the county as well as other municipalities, such as Corvallis, to meet our load allocations for temperature and bacteria. And what our total maximum daily load, which is a Clean Water Act regulatory program, it does not specify a buffer. What it does is it specifies a shade target, which is based on some of the data that I relayed to Dr. Newton's question concerning what went into the determination of what is the natural thermal potential. And that is, the 1850 land survey, the topography, the hydrology, the soils that can support a certain type of vegetation. We laid that out in a guidance document which we gave to the city. I can make it available to you. And in that total maximum daily load document that's published on the internet and that went out for public review was reviewed extensively and went through a number of cycles of public comment that identifies shade targets and how to calculate those shade targets. And ultimately, that is the point of compliance with the total maximum daily load. So we don't specify a buffer width. And every municipality approaches it a little differently. Metro, in the Portland metropolitan area, they have a 100-foot buffer, but it depends on a lot of other variables. There's a lot of flexibility, like the proposed ordinance for Benton County has in it, so that a developer can meet their objectives as well as the public can be ensured that water quality is protected.
So it's DEQ's position that required buffers are not what they want. That's what you just said.
No, I said our buffers are, we don't specify in the total maximum daily load buffers. What we do is we provide a shade target, which is what the shade you go for, the level of shade we're looking for on the various bodies of water in Benton County. So you could, depending on the density of your riparian vegetation, you could meet the shade target with a 50-foot buffer.